to Remembering Your Oneness with Xane Daniel and Monika Kupiec, where we know everything, and so do you. Hello.
Hello. How's it
It
going?
looked like there was an earthquake going on over there when you came back.
I was trying to close my drawer. I usually rest my hands on it, but I was like, I kind of want to be closer today. I don't want to, but I didn't.
Okay, well then I'm going to sit way further back today.
It didn't want to go in. It's like a little jammed.
Gotcha. Well, so for anybody watching, please say hello to us and tell us where you're watching from. And uh-oh, Monica's frozen. Oh, there she is. Okay, good. So what's new? I know what our topic is today. Hey, Eduardo. Oh, that's actually oh no, I always do this, but it's good to see Eduardo again, and Luis. He's in Missouri, and he wants to get back in the program again because he went through a negative entity thing a couple of years ago now, and it's kind of come back for him a little bit. So we're going to work together hopefully soon and take care of that for him. So sometimes you just need a refresher.
Yeah. I was just thinking that last night. It's like, oh, when people aren't present, how do they get back into more presence again? Or what do they use to remember themselves again?
Right. Yeah. So and then Jaybird. Hello.
So we can kind of hear this time.
Yeah.
We can have some side comments there from a third person.
Yeah.
I guess speaker.
Right. Yeah, responding to off camera. There'll be some hook that comes in and pulls me. So okay. So the topic today, and my video actually just released, right? So it's all about overcoming emotional, what do we want to say, challenges. So first of all, we have to be able to say that there is some sort of challenge, right? We have to go, I don't like this. So in order to go, I don't like this, then you're feeling some sort of suffering, something that you don't really want. There has to be a reason to make it go away. So now if we do that, then we're already in a place of what? Like disappointment, unhappiness about the fact that we have some sort of an emotional suffering. So already we are saying that we don't want this. We don't want something. But maybe it is that we're supposed to experience it. Maybe it is that it's somehow positive for us, even though it feels negative. So the first thing to do is to go, do I really not want this? And if so, why?
Well, I mean, to put it into some perspective, yesterday I finally went for a run. I think it's been a little over a month. And midway through, I was like, oh, I don't think I can keep going. I don't think I can keep going. So then I became aware of like, oh, well, that's just my thought, but how's my heart feeling? And I think I've made this analogy once before, and my heart felt good. I was like, okay, let's keep going. And then slowly just being aware, okay, I was in this situation of giving up, or in this situation of like, oh, I feel horrible, I feel miserable. But actually, I feel my body feels fine. It can keep going. It's just my mind that's limiting me. And I think it's very similar to any other, slightly more of a depressive or dip in our emotions. It's usually our thoughts are a little bit more active or taking advantage of the actual body. Because if you really talk to your body more and your heart, I feel like you'll kind of come to terms. It's like, ooh, I'm actually okay right now in the present moment. Unless, something serious is happening. But like if it's just you solo, I feel like usually if you mentally and more consciously talk to your body, you're kind of in that state of, I'm just making this up in a way, but not like making it up, but like your ego or that thought system is just really overpowering your actual higher self or current self.
Right. Absolutely. And so I want to, of course, say hello to Marion. Good to see you again. It's been a while. And okay, so what the other thing that we have to do when we talk about all of this is we have to say, all right, well, how many types of suffering are there available to us? What kind of suffering can we have?
Mhm.
And you might jump into a big list of different things, but really it can be broken down into two categories. There's physical and emotional. There's no other type of suffering that you can experience. That's it. So if you think about the emotional suffering that you're experiencing, you want to think about it in the context of what is the actual suffering? What does it consist of? Does it have some sort of physical component? Or if if it's a physical suffering, then it's going to, of course, have a physical component. But if it's
Mhm.
emotional suffering, it generally has a physical component as well. When you feel fear, then you're going to feel maybe a butterflies in your stomach or some sort of discomfort in your chest, or and for everyone it's completely different. So the first thing to do is to go, what is it that I'm actually experiencing? I really want to understand it. And that
Mhm.
actually can be very healing in itself, because a lot of times we just go, oh, I don't want this, right? And then we try to like run away from it and we try to make it not exist. We try, and in that case, we are, what we resist persists, right? Like we've heard that a million times. So we're definitely in resistance as soon as we go, yuck, I don't want this. But if we were to say, well, what is this really? Let me
Yeah.
really focus on it for a second. Let me really understand what it is that I'm experiencing. And then if you do that, all of a sudden, you're not running away from it. You're not in resistance to it. You're focused on it. You're not afraid of it because you're bringing it forward to yourself. You're saying, well, let me really examine this thing. And then all kinds of interesting things start to happen. It could be that it starts to reduce almost immediately. And it's this weird kind of ass backwards sort of thing that you go, what? You mean the more that I focus on the thing that makes it disappear? I always thought that the more I ran away from it, the more it disappeared. And that's generally not the case.
Yeah, usually tucking it under the rug isn't gonna make it go away. It's gonna come back maybe in a year or 2 or come back in a different form. Not necessarily through the same, emotion. It could come out as something different or through someone else that you attract, and then they're just reciprocating that same experience for you until you finally figure out, "Okay, this is a lesson. Let me actually dive into where is this coming from?" Whether it's the root or whether it's just something that you're currently doing that's just not truly aligned with yourself, which is why you keep attracting it.
Right. Yeah. And Arthur's saying this, which is great. Acceptance is the key. That's absolutely right. Because by exploring it and examining it and really understanding it as best you possibly can, you are in a state of acceptance. I accept that I am experiencing this negative emotion.
Mhm.
And so in that way, we are by examining it, we are accepting it. And that's the first, really a first fantastic step to overcoming the problem. And I put that in quotes because, of course, everything happens for us, not to us. So
Mhm.
we often put ourselves in the victim mindset. Why did this have to happen to me? Instead saying, well, why did this happen for me? What is this discomfort that I'm experiencing? What is it going to bring to me? What
Mhm.
kind of positive result am I going to get from this? That now moves up the chart from acceptance to positive belief or optimistic view. That changes your vibration. So if you were at a lower vibration because you're emotionally suffering from anger or disappointment or frustration or whatever, or unworthiness or whatever, then by going into acceptance and going into optimism, we start to raise our vibration. And now we're not pulled down nearly as much by that initial emotional negativity.
So, say someone is already, like, pretty high vibrational, and then, um, is that already kind of like a step that there's no way a negative entity would enter into them, or is it still possible no matter what vibration you're at?
Generally, the answer to that question is if you are at a high vibration, it's impossible.
Mm,
And the thing is that people believe that they're at a high vibration, and then they have a negative entity, and so
mm,
they go, "Well, that didn't work." Zane's obviously wrong there,
right.
but they actually thought that they were higher than they were, and
Mm,
that's the challenge of the high vibration thing. So instead of talking, I love talking about negative entities and all that entails. But from an emotional standpoint, if you're at a high vibration and you experience a very low negative experience, whatever that might be, then you can actually not see it as negative, and or not see it as negative as it could be otherwise.
yeah.
And you can recognize that, hey, I am visiting this lower vibrational emotion. I am visiting this negative emotion for a good reason. And I'm going to allow myself to do that. And I'm not going to run from it. I'm not going to fight it. I'm just going to experience it because I know that I visit these things as a human, and this will be a temporary experience. I'm going to visit this emotion that I don't appreciate very much, but I know that in time that it'll go away. So I'll give the example of the van accident. We were doing the van life thing, and we were living, wherever we wanted to and having a great time. And then I made the wrong turn and crashed the van, and it was totaled. Right.
Yeah.
So I blamed myself for that because I could have prevented that. And and so I felt pretty crappy about it for some time. Certainly that day I was pretty miserable, and it took a week or something for me to kind of clear it completely.
Mhm.
And even now I'll still go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, 6 months ago or 4 months ago or whatever it was. So I know, and I knew at the time that while I was experiencing that, blaming myself, being down on myself, and all that, I knew that that was going to be a temporary experience,
Yeah.
and at the same time, I didn't want it. I did not want that feeling. but
Mhm.
but I was able to kind of go, all right, well, I know this is part of the process. This is like a grieving process. This is like so many different things, and I'm going to go ahead and reside in those places, and I'm also going to do activations for myself. I did all kinds of different things to make that process go as smooth as I possibly could. But in the end, I had to accept that that was going to be the process, and and get as much out of it as I possibly could. And of course, I got a lot out of it. It strengthened my relationship and with my partner. So it's been, ultimately looking back on it now, of course, we live in a cool house in another state, and a lot of awesome things have happened as a result of
Yeah.
that. So, I have that now. I have the perspective of history to be able to say, see, it all works out. It always does. So there's no reason to be super miserable about it. So in that time, it can be difficult to imagine that. Oh my gosh, I destroyed my vehicle and my house in one fell swoop, and now we're homeless. I could easily have gone down that and just been an absolute
Yeah.
miserable wreck for months. But no, that's not the way that you're going to get out of it, and that's not the way that you're going to get the lessons out of it.
Yeah, because you kind of act consciously versus I mean, sure, you have the little, like, not like grieving stage, but you have that stage of like, "Oh shit, this just happened." But then you're able to kinda like regroup and recenter once you kind of realize, "Okay, not necessarily now what, but what you said earlier, what is this for me? Like, why is this for me?" And then that was really mainly because maybe you're ready to step up your stage in your relationship or to get the house finally to get more centered, more rooted instead of going around to different cities through the camper van. So it's like
Right.
everything kind of not like it's like a series of events, but it's mainly because one, you were aware of what was happening, and then it kind of easefully kind of helped you with the next parts.
Right. Well, and anytime that we think that we are totally way above having emotions, like, oh my gosh, I'm so advanced, or I am so high vibe that I can't
Yeah.
possibly experience lower emotions. What? You're here as a human. You're going to experience them no
Yeah.
matter what. So I know that, that it is definitely one of those things that we can accept our humanness. And that is even part of the acceptance practice, is to say, hey, I'm a human being and I'm going to feel this way. And I'm probably not going to like it, but I but that's okay, because I know I'm experiencing it for a great reason, and get all the lessons and all that stuff that I've already said.
Yeah. So I think we gotta circle back to Jaybird's disagreement with you.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
What
have
is she
to.
disagreeing about?
I don't know. I don't know what she's disagreeing about.
I
So
feel like this is gonna get
she'll have to
some
tell us.
sort of emotional live course action here.
Yes, yes. She's typing now, so we're gonna
Ooh.
hear what she has to say about that.
I mean, just bring it over. Let her
Hey, you're
talk it
welcome
out.
to speak if you want. she she
No.
doesn't like doing that very
Yeah,
much.
I know. I was just, just feeling it out.
Yeah, yeah.
And then if is it Marion? If Marion
Marion.
can elaborate to why she thinks Zane's perspective is highly accurate, to
Mhm,
which part of what Zane said, so that way others can get more clarity. Also,
that's
I love your icon. It's the uterus with the middle finger.
right. Nice. So okay, so the first step is getting into that place of acceptance. It's getting into that, I'm exploring what this emotional experience feels like, and really getting my head wrapped around it, and feeling it, and so on and so forth. Okay. So now you've got that isolated. You understand what it is. Oh, it's a feeling in my chest. It's a cloudiness of the brain. That happens a lot of times too. And you have one of those lower emotions, then it's hard to think straight. And you can also get locked into what we all call overthinking, trying to solve it. Oh, what do I need to do? Why can't I get through this? And then you start doubting yourself, right? Why can't I figure this out? I'm so lame that I'm still feeling this emotional burden. Jesus, why can't I get through this? I I'm I'm terrible. You start
Yeah.
to beat yourself up over it. And so this overthinking mind then causes you to go way down a horrible path, and it makes it so much harder to get over.
Mhm.
So what I teach people to do, and I know you do too, Monica, is to go for gratitude now. So let's talk about what it is that we're grateful for. That's going to raise the vibration, and it's going to use that overthinking mind to overthink about whatever it is that you're grateful for. You're going to overthink about the incredible things that you have, or the incredible life that it exists, the birds, the trees, the sun, the ocean, whatever, and have that experience. Now you're shifting your vibration from that lower place to a higher place, and you're taking advantage of that mind that loves to dissect things and to try to figure things out. Well, let's use that to figure out all the things that we can be grateful for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I don't necessarily use gratitude too much. It's more of just, like, appreciating the present moment to where you're at, which is basically gratitude, but without necessarily stating that you're grateful for it. It's more of just really being absorbed in, "Okay, there was just this beautiful sunrise or this beautiful sunset. Like, this is just energizing my soul completely right now." Or how I yesterday when I went for a run and then I went to the forest, that because usually my little jog goes to a forest. And then in the forest, I kind of just sat down on a rock and I was like, wow, this feels really good. And I was just talking to my heart and talking to my body. What else does it want to do next? Because usually, whatever I feel good or whatever I try to overcome with my body, I then ask it, well, what feels better for you? And at the point where my jog stops, I can either go to the beach or go to the forest. And midway through, or like a block before it, I asked my body, like, hey, do you want to go to the forest or do you want to go to the beach? And I heard forest. And I feel like it was mainly because to experience that true groundingness, like the trees were or like the leaves were rattling from the wind. Like there was this beautiful gust of wind too that was like clearing my energy. And it was just a lot of like kind of like a euphoric, like, enchanted like scenery
Mhm.
essentially. And it's like by listening to my body, it was able to give me this experience of like relief or temporary love. And I feel like instead of using gratitude, I more so use like the word or concept of love from nature, because nature was filling me up with all of this beautiful energy. And sure, I am grateful for it, but it's more of just that experience that stuck with me, instead of making a list of, oh, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. Is more of actually experiencing the gratefulness. Because you could be in your bed and you could write all these things, but if you're not actually active in them, I feel like the gratitude is only going to stay on the paper instead of through channeling through the body through these experiences.
Right. Okay. So that's amazing, and I really like that because there's, what I'm talking about is just writing a list, right, of of
Mhm.
things that you're grateful for. In the video that is coinciding with this, I said, like, if you put your bed as something that you're grateful for, then go jump in that bed and feel how soft it is and feel how comfortable it is, and get
Yeah.
into the feeling of the gratitude experience rather than just, I've made my list, Xane. Okay, do I
Yeah.
really feel that much better? So I like what you're saying there. It's very important to go for the feeling. But if you can't, let's say for whatever reason, you're
Yeah.
too blocked or whatever, at least making that list and thinking about it is a first step. If you say, well, I'm not going to go out in nature and I'm not going to lay around in my bed or whatever, then at least do the list thing. And then once you've done that, then definitely go and try to feel the feeling of the thing that you're grateful for. That's huge.
Because I think that just raises your vibration even more, because I was journaling the night before and like it was fine, but then when I actually went out to do the run and do the hike and do like the little walk in the forest, I feel like then it tied all of those thoughts into like, wow, how beautiful it is to be in my body, how beautiful it is to truly be immersed in all of this. And obviously if you have any physical complications where you can't do the things that you're grateful for, then that's clearly when the power of the thought is like truly magical and powerful, because you'll get to embody it that way. But I feel like you should still be able to either go outside, either someone strolling you on your wheelchair or something, or whatever situation that you're in, or cracking open a window to like actually feel the wind. I feel like bringing in that elemental factor is truly going to really raise that or escalate that sensation that you're being grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah,
There's a lizard.
there's a lizard in the house. All right.
Sorry.
Huh?
Where is it? Oh my gosh. Oh wow. Okay.
Well,
Well, we'll have to
usually if
deal with
there's
that.
that's kind of funny. Whenever I have lizards in my house, I kind of, or before I had a cat, I would actually kind of just freak out and try to capture it and put it
Yeah.
outside. But
Right.
now that I have a cat, I'm like, oh well, good luck to you,
Yeah. Right.
because I
Yeah.
know the cat's just gonna go get it.
Yeah. We've already had one. It was like a skink, and we were able to get it outside. So yeah.
Mm.
So now we've got that. Anyway, I was gonna say something great. Maybe. I was gonna say something at least. I forget what I was gonna say.
I
Ah,
gotta say
shoot.
thank you to Johnny for the super chat.
Yes, Johnny, and that's Louise.
Mm.
Louis. I don't know how to say his name. Luis. I want to say it with a Spanish accent. Uh, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. So yeah, when it's all about folk, I cannot remember what it was that I was going to say now because the lizards knocked
Maybe
jarred it out
maybe
of my
maybe
mind.
maybe it wasn't that great after
It
all.
wasn't, it wasn't. It must have been terrible. Yeah, yeah.
Or maybe
So
that's your emotional response of like, "Wow, I had this amazing thought, but truly did I have to escalate it up to a pedestal that it was so amazing?"
oh man,
You
yeah,
know?
that's right. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, well, and to be in that grateful state of mind does change everything. So to be able to take, for me, I get all tight, right? Like I notice that I'm tightening my gut, or I'm clenching my shoulders, or I'm, my jaw or whatever. And when I'm having a negative emotional thing, I find myself all clenched, right? And
Mm,
so then if I can go, well, yeah, but there's just so much to be grateful for. And then I take a big deep breath and I relax all that clenchedness. It's kind of like, duh, of course I don't need to be upset about this. Like
mhm.
this is completely silly compared to the what's the, the rest of my life and the rest of the world and all of these other things. I'm making this problem that I'm experiencing right now so huge. It's so big, and I really don't need to do that. What my experience is very small in comparison to all of society, or all the dimensions, or all this. Like, I don't really need to prop this up into making it so giant or so massive.
Yeah.
That is totally a waste of time and energy, and it's completely not true. I mean, it's not worth it, and it isn't that big. It is something small, and it is something temporary. Even if it feels like it's everything, it's still small and temporary compared to all of existence, and even all of your existence as an individual.
Yeah. Well, it's also like I feel like when you have these like amazing thoughts while you're in conversation with someone, it's like, are you truly really present in it because you're so excited to say what you want to say, but then, the other person might do something else or say something else that then kind of either backfires what you're trying to come back with,
You get
or
it?
anything else. It's really interesting because I've definitely thought of this too. It's like, well, what defines like presence when you're having a conversation with someone? Like, is it really just co-listening and holding space, or is it you trying to find that reaction or that advice that you're trying to give? And I feel like a lot of the time it is truly just holding space for someone with not even having to say something afterwards, because you're really just integrating what that person is saying and letting them vent to you, and by them venting, it then helps them become more present because then they're not cluttered with this thought anymore. And I feel like it's also a form of forgiveness when you're just holding space for someone, because at least what I do is when I filter through someone's venting is I kind of reflect it back to me as like anything similar happening in my life. Am I thinking this way too?
Yeah.
And how am I able to internally forgive this within myself and with that person projecting that onto me?
Yeah, that's awesome. I really like that. And then I have to say, the Lizard King, he can do anything, even make you lose your train of thought. Um, and we got it. So, okay. So based on what you were just saying there, you actually helped me realize that, when we're doing overthinking, our brains are going really fast, and they're kind of jumbled. And some people can even have like three or four kind of thoughts that are happening simultaneously. And it's a real clustered mess in the brain. But when you go to explain it to someone else, you you have to have only one channel of communication, only one voice coming out of your mouth. So it forces you to stop having 10 voices going on and just focus on the one voice. That can help calm the mind quite a bit,
Oh,
because
yeah.
you're not in that scattered thought. You've got to come up with a linear thought process, and you've got to communicate that to someone else. And then there's this weird thing where you actually observe yourself speaking, and you go, oh, I didn't even realize that. Right? Like, you can
Yeah.
actually, by saying it out loud, you teach yourself something. So the whole concept of talking to someone who you can really truly talk to about whatever it is that you're dealing with, someone who's a good listener and isn't going to try to interrupt you or judge you or whatever, that can be very invaluable to that whole healing process.
Yeah. But also it's like there's this like need that everybody loves to respond to, and I feel like just holding it back is also just helping you be more present too, because then you're trying to actually not force yourself, because a lot of people love to interrupt. Like, I like to interrupt too sometimes, and I feel like interrupting is a very common thing, but I feel like if you can catch yourself interrupting, it might actually help train you to be more present, because you're going to actually understand, well, you can ask yourself, why am I interrupting? Why is it that I need to truly say this right now while someone else is like, it's their turn to speak, or it's their turn to do something. So I feel like there's a lesson in almost anything that we say or react or overindulge in per se. And I think it's also just an emotional, what is this topic called? Emotional what?
Overcoming
Emotional.
emotional challenges.
Yeah, emotional challenges. So I feel like if people interrupt, maybe it's just their form of, oh, well, they've never truly been heard, or they've never truly been, it could be some sort of childhood thing that's causing them to, interrupt, or having to say something first, or needing that attention, or seeking that attention or confirmation from other people.
You have
But I
no idea how hard it was to not interrupt you during that, just as a joke, right? Like, I just wanted to interrupt you the whole time. I was struggling with doing it or not doing it. And another reason people interrupt is because they forget what they're going to say. So they go, I better get this out now because it's going to be lost. Or they're just impulsive. Like, you're just like, oh, I'm so excited to say this thing. And then they say it. They can't help themselves. So it's also not judging the person who interrupts, because
Mhm.
there can be so many different reasons why people would do that.
Well, it's also just accepting them for who they are, because I've definitely met people that just love to finish my sentences, or just, like, speaking the words out of my mouth already. It's like, why are we having this conversation if you're just gonna if you're just gonna be saying everything? But it's also, when that did happen, like, to me once with this one lady talking about my art, I was like, I feel like I'm just here just holding the space that, hey, this is possible to do, and then you can interpret it and figure out on your own. It doesn't even seem like I need to be saying anything, because you're selling it yourself in a way.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's just literally, what I interpret is that someone just needs to talk, or either they haven't been listened to in a while, or it's really hard for them to communicate. But then they meet me and they're like, oh, blah, 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 blah. They're just chatterboxes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people, when they meet me, they're like, oh, I feel so comfortable talking to you, or it really feels like I can be myself around you. So it then questions into, ooh, like, why is it hard for you to not be yourself around other people? Like, what are other people either causing you to do, or are you hanging out with inauthentic people that then you're reciprocating that inauthenticity? So I feel like there's more factors with this overcoming emotional challenges, because it's like factors from other people, but then factors of your own self. But I feel like any emotion challenge still bottles down to, are you being authentic with yourself? Like, is
Right.
this truly you? Is this truly what you're capable of, or the only capability that you have?
Right. So then I would love for Remnock too. So he feels accelerated and like he crashes into a wall when something stops or slows down my thought process. I'd love for you to describe that a little bit better, because I think it's interesting that, so he's talking about that overthinking mind, I'm sure, and then crashing into a wall when something stops or slows down. Like, what it stops and slows you down, and what is the crashing experience? Like, is that a bad thing or a good thing? I kind of want to know a little bit more about what he's talking about.
Yeah, that is very
Yeah.
an interesting analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were talking about like interrupting, so maybe it's something about interrupting, where he feels accelerated to interrupt, and then when he does do it, it feels like it's a crash because he should have not done it. Maybe, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Just small little small little thought. So what else is your video about? What other topics do you have about?
Well, it's a really short one. It's actually only 5 minutes. So I
Oh.
really wanted to get a quick like explanation as to how to get over these emotional challenges. And so
Mhm.
I talk about the gratitude as step number 1, and step number 2 is doing those activations. So being able to relieve emotional suffering through an activation that opens you up or that changes your retunes your emotional frequency. So
Mm.
emotions are just frequencies, and we're tuning into the ones that are appropriate for the situation. So if we could actually retune to a lesser version or a completely different emotion, then it really makes a big difference on that
Oh,
feeling,
you
that
froze on me.
suffering experience that you're having. So that's the other part of what that video was all about. And there's one that you can download free off my website. If you haven't already, I'll go ahead and put it in the chat here. It's for nervousness, and it's very powerful and has an immediate impact.
Is this the one that you would do before you did like a speech or something, or is this different? Oh, you froze or I froze? One of us froze. Well, if anyone is out there, let us know how you're doing right now.
Am I back?
Oh, you're back now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I don't know if I heard your whole question.
I think I forgot the question. The question. Is this the same activation as the one that you used to do before you did a speech?
Oh yes, it is. It is the exact same one. Yep. So
Public
yes.
speaking, yeah. Public
Yeah.
speaking.
Right. Yeah. When I had to give talks in front of large groups, and as a child, I was always terrified of that. Throughout high school, I never wanted to do anything like that. And then in my career, I had to, and I still didn't like it. But especially then, when I had to do one in front of over 100 people, I was just like, shaking like a leaf. And so I had to. When I did the activation, it made it so that I was totally comfortable, and it was very easy to do. I just did it about 15 minutes before I gave the talk. So that's how you use these emotional things. You use them while you're experiencing that emotion, and it instantly clears them. And not
Mhm.
clear completely, but man, reduces them so much that now you can take a look at that emotional response and have a good idea and good understanding as to what your um, what the reason might be that you're experiencing it, how when you have the mental block during the emotional experience, then it can really get in the way of being able to do the thing that you need to do. So being able to reduce that so that you don't have that mental anguish, and then you can absorb it, experience it, feel it, and learn from it. That's super powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But I feel like that is also just, that activation just sounds like giving yourself that self-check and letting yourself know, like, "Hey, I'm safe. I can do this." And, "Hey, thoughts, like, take a pause. Like, go somewhere else right now."
yeah.
And then you just stepping into your power too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It has a visceral experience. Like it just feels completely different almost
Mhm.
instantaneously. So it just makes it easier for you to like, okay, now I can have gratitude. Now I can examine this emotional experience. Now I can do all this. I'm not so surrounded by or burdened by this emotion.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at Remnock's response here. So, like huge energy in my head that causes my mind to race. Then, when I get what would be a minor annoyance, it causes huge dissonance and actual physical pain in its head. Okay. And then, lack of expressing myself in healthy ways and being too much in my head has caused a lot of fragmentation and loss of my body connection, anxiety, panic, etc. Right. So here, and he's got more to say here. Let's see. Yes, I'm learning to express emotions and not run from them, but it's very hard with the amount of physical block and uncomfortable sensations going on. Okay. So that's an interesting one because of the discomfort, again, the body discomfort. So it is also, and we've talked about this before, I'm sure, is examining that feeling and saying like, okay, I'm feeling this discomfort and I don't really appreciate it, or I don't really like it, or I would prefer not to, but I am. And it's okay to feel that. And it's funny how powerful something like that is. You wouldn't think that it would be, but it really is. So, and I know that you've done that, and yet we can still be so distracted by the discomfort that we forget that just examining it, just breathing into it, just experiencing it as an experiment. Like, you're a scientist, you are experimenting with life. And so one of your experiments is yourself and all the different emotional experiences and physical experiences that you have. Explore them, experience them. And then, as Monika, I'm sure, would say, go into nature and breathe in the air from the trees and listen to the birds and feel the ground on your bare feet. Go barefoot, especially this time of year. This is a great time to do it because you can actually be out there and exchange those ions with Mother Gaia.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a side thing is, if you're feeling extreme physical pain, maybe going outside isn't capable for you. But sometimes what I do to calm my anxiety is actually read a book. And then through reading and getting immersed in the book, if it's a good book, I can actually, have that out of body experience. It's like, wow, how nice it is just to sit here and do nothing and just read, or how pleasant it is to do this. And reading like calms my anxiety or calms my heart and actually gives me that grounding feeling. So maybe just incorporating more things without your phone or in the digital sense, because being on your phone, everything's so fast paced now. It's like I feel like any social media is just cut, like so many different things just to grab your attention or to keep your mind flowing. But
Yeah.
realistically, that's just causing you anxiety, because it's like, oh, when is this going to end? Or boom, 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 like so many different edits. But reading a book is just that casual thing of, going at your own pace, flipping through a book or flipping page by page. And it's like a different grounding sensation. And if it's more of like a fantasy book, you get to export yourself from this life into that fantasy and kind of be immersed in that world. I always found reading fantasy is almost like watching a movie, but I'm the director and I get to make up all the characters. So it could be something like that that could help you, Remnock.
Good. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm glad. Yes, Destin, it's nice to see you again. I think I say Destiny. It's as opposed to Destin.
Destine.
Yeah, but it's great to see you, and thanks for showing up and supporting. So yeah, one of the things that we didn't get to talk about was what Jaybird had said, right, about what she disagreed with me on, and this was it. The being able to not exactly be affected by lower vibrational emotions when you're enlightened. Yeah, so she had an experience like this where she was very high, flying very high, and then she kind of came down, and it was very challenging and very painful for her to come down from this incredibly high place that she was at, and she hasn't really been able to get back there. So there's all kinds of interesting things to when we break this apart, because we say, all right, well, to get back there means that you're unhappy with where you're at and you would much rather be in that other place. Well, that in itself is essentially saying that I'm living in lack and deficiency and I can't get back to this incredible place. Many people have these moments of enlightenment where they feel that they're part of the universe, and all of their troubles and feelings and negative things just kind of go away. And sometimes this lasts for like 5 seconds or for one meditation. Well, for her, it lasted for like a year and a half. So she really got to experience it in all aspects of life. And so when it went away, then it was very problematic and troublesome and so on. So she, but again, the other thing I was saying is that we're all human. So even in those high vibrational places, we can still go crashing down because those external stimuli, the emotional experiences, they carry a lot of weight, and they're going to trump some of those high vibrational experiences, just because we are still humans and we are still experiencing all of the emotions here on this planet.
Yeah. Well, it feels like, one, we didn't really talk about, like, enlightened, like, I feel like it was just a typical high vibrational thing, but two, it's also just enjoying the present, like, if you're not there anymore, it just means that you definitely will eventually get there already because you've already been there, so it's like you still remember it, but I feel like she's at a place now where she's taking care of more of herself, like, she lost a lot of weight, she's taking care of her health and, like, her mental health, so I feel like she's definitely working her way up to be in an even higher vibration than what she remembers the last one being at, and it's all about just enjoying the journey. Because 'cause I've definitely gone through, like, depressive, like, dips in my life, or I had a pain in my ankle for 3.5 years, but during that 3.5 years, I wasn't like, "Oh, well, I remember when I used to not have this pain." It was more of, like, truly embodying that pain that I had and figuring out, well, where do I feel good or where do I not feel it? Like, what's helping it? What's making it more inflamed? And you have all these beautiful lessons of really tuning into your intuition, because that's kind of what I learned through the pain that I had for so long. It was strengthening that bond with my intuitive self and figuring out, what is working, what isn't. I wasn't necessarily stuck on, well, I'm not at a high vibration right now because my pain level is at 11. Like, I don't even think I was understanding those concepts of high vibrational or not. I was
Right.
just being me. And I feel like if you eliminate Jaybird, that idea of like, oh, I'm not high vibrational, I feel like you'll actually realize you are high vibrational. Like, you're already it. You're just not, you're not, you're so stuck in that past feeling of like, oh, I used to be so high vibrational then, but you kind of already are now.
Yeah, I agree.
And I feel like that
100%.
goes in tune with anyone. It's like we're just having this hard time remembering that higher vibration that we're at, but that's also your ego tuning into like, "Oh, I'm not high vibrational, then who am I?" But it's like if you eliminate that word and just really embody yourself, you being you, I think it's the highest form of vibration because no one can actually match that or no one can attain that because it's you.
Right. And high vibration, well, it's such a label, right? It's such a uh it's one of those things. It's kind of like, in a weird way, it's kind of like, oh, well, you'll be wealth if you're wealthy, then you will be happy. Okay, so I got to be wealthy, and so am I wealthy yet? I'm not wealthy yet. Okay, well then I'm not happy. Oh, I'm wealthy. Oh shoot, I should be happy, but I'm not. High
Mhm.
vibrational. Am I high vibrational yet? Nope. Okay, well I guess I'm not happy. Am I high vibrational? Oh, I'm high vibrational. Oh, well, then why don't I feel happy? There's like
Yeah.
no difference between the two.
Yeah.
But what she's very specifically saying, she was in a bliss state, right? She was
Mm.
in a bliss state for 2.5 years. I think I said 1.5. She corrected me, 2.5. And so when that bliss state went away, then all of a sudden, she was in a miserable place, and it was like falling from that experience. And so she's been trying to get back to that bliss state. And instead, it isn't about getting back there. It's about realizing that you're still in it, that you still are, and you can manifest that bliss state anytime you want to. It's totally within your power to do so.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, Amanda, I have been struggling with being stuck in thought, almost paralyzed. Yes. Any tips or ideas on how to get more into action and less into thought? Well, absolutely. And I don't know if you watched the whole thing, Amanda, but one of those ways, I try not to remove thought, because our brains their entire purpose is to create thoughts. That's all they do. Thought after thought after thought. I once imagined that there was some new device on Amazon, and it was called Brain in a Box, and you're like, ooh, wow, I want to get that thing and you get it and you plug it in and it just produces thoughts. Hey, isn't it nice today? Hey, let's did you do the laundry yet? Oh, hey, maybe there's a new movie we could see. Oh, there's something. And eventually you just be like, okay, this thing is driving me nuts, because all it's doing is just constantly producing thoughts. You'd unplug the thing and you'd send it back, because it would be ridiculous. So I don't see it as highly reasonable to how to get more into action and less into thought. I don't know. You can go less into thought. At least you're not asking to remove thought altogether, because that is not really possible. But what you can do is use those thoughts to your advantage. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Be in gratitude. And then instead of being stuck in thought about what's wrong, be stuck in thought about what's right. Oh, I love this and I love that, and this experience is fantastic, and I'm so grateful for my family, and I'm so grateful for this and that and this and that and that and that. And why are you so grateful? I'm so grateful for this reason. And then go experience it. Go out into the world and experience. If you're grateful for the sun, stand in the sun and feel it. If you're grateful for your bed, lay down and feel how soft and comfortable it is. This is the conclusion of what Monika and I were talking about earlier in the this is the quick summary version, but I highly recommend that, because now you're using that mind in a positive way, in a constructive way, rather than in a destructive way.
Yeah. Well, I feel like she just said it in her responses. How do I get more into action? Well, there you go. Action. Action isn't like laying around and doing nothing, and that's how you're being stuck in your thoughts or having them keep on going. But like yesterday, how I finally went for that run is because my neighbors were doing some sort of remodeling with their pavement, so it was loud, and I had my big headphones, and I'm like, I can still hear this. And what was my action? I removed myself from the location and went for my run. I was like, wow, what a perfect opportunity for the universe to finally shove me out of my house to go for a run. Because it's something that calms me down or gets me out of my anxiety type of thing. And it's like all of these elements were coming in for me to finally go. And because I finally went, I have this remembrance like, wow, I feel really good when I do this. I'm going to do this again tonight, or maybe I'll go again tomorrow, or just have more of a rhythm, or create myself a rubric of, let me focus on working out right now, because that's actually creating a healthier environment for me. I had a really great night's sleep. I had wonderful dreams. Today I woke up feeling refreshed. I feel good. So it's like, Amanda, what action can you take that makes you feel good? It might not be a run, but maybe it's a walk, maybe it's a swim, maybe it's going to the gym or doing yoga, something movement based. Because you just said there, how can I get more into action, which is movement? So you want to move your body. Maybe it's going out to go dancing, or putting out on like great music and doing a little dance. But it's really kind of like just to get you sweat and get yourself moving, because I think when the body is moving, you have less energy to think also. Or at least when you are thinking, like when I was running, I kept thinking, oh, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. But then I'm asking my heart, tuning into my body, like, oh, well, hey, what's up? What's going on? Like, are we physically tired and can't go anymore? And my body said no. So then I kept pushing and moving forward. And I think that's the same thing when you do your last rep, when you're lifting weights. You finally have that strength or that final inertia to like pull up that bar, or to, do a squat after doing like a whole bunch of them. So I feel like it's just really tuning into your body and seeing what works for you through movement.
Love it.
And then incorporating more of that.
Yes, absolutely. And as Marian says, dance party.
Yeah.
And then Shay, this is great that you're writing in your journal. Journal writing is another way to work through the problems. Maybe you don't have somebody that you can talk to that won't give you any judgment about what's going on in your emotional state. It's the same thing. It's taking those cluttered mind thoughts that are all over the place and writing it in a linear thing that helps you clarify what you're going through. And if you think about it, even as though you're writing your journal for someone else, oh, this person needs to understand, my memoirs, way after I've died, someone's going to read this. Well, let me explain this in a way that anybody reading it would be able to understand. That changes the way that you perceive your own experiences. Oh, well, this is sort of like, oh, I guess, have you ever, and then you write it in a different way. Have you ever felt this way before? Well, that's the way I'm feeling right now. So now you're just expanding the way that you think in a way that it can actually be extremely healing.
Yeah.
Oh, great. See, she's writing it for someone. She's writing it for her children. And that's even better. So now you get to give lessons and you get to teach them about what you're experiencing and how they're going to be able to maybe overcome it as well. And they're going to go through their later lives and say, wow, it's a good thing mom wrote this, because I was able to learn this one thing that she said. Oh my gosh, this is happening to me. I remember reading this. This is what happened to my mom. That's really beautiful, and gives it even more of a purpose to writing it in the first place, to giving you more motivation to do it. Because one of the biggest problems that people have with doing a journal is that they lose interest. Well, if you're writing it for someone and specifically for your children, then that is a great way to keep that interest level going. It's awesome.
Yeah, I usually have a journal. I was just cleaning out yesterday. I have a bunch of journals, but I have journals for like different purposes or different instances. And I feel like I write so I can refresh my memory about what I went through and what I overcame, what emotional overcoming did I have or challenge that I have back then that I resolved in some way. And yes, the other day when I was reading it, I was like, oh, wow, I should do more of this because it helped me at that point, or the instances of painting a certain spirit being because it helped me in that form. So it was just like little reminders of like, oh, I kind of steered away from this path. Let me get back onto it, or let me use this concept again to help me with this current situation that I'm in.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. There's so many different little methods and techniques that we can use to overcome that emotional suffering. So that just seemed like a perfect ending to our podcast today. So thanks. Yeah. So thanks to everyone. Lots of wonderful people who have joined us today and given us thoughts and told us about their lives so that we could try our best to help them. And hopefully it was extremely helpful for those. And if it wasn't, well, maybe listen to it again, or and you'll find some tidbits that you might have missed the first time.
Aloha.
Goodbye, everyone. We'll see you next week.